Baseball doesn't look like it used to, not on the field, not in the dugouts, and definitely not in the stands. In 1981, nearly one out of every five Major League Baseball players was black, 18%. Today, that number has fallen to less than 6. Think about that for a second. The game that once overflowed with black stars is now the whitest it's been in over half a century. This didn't just happen by accident, it's the result of decades of decisions, policies, in a system that was never designed to be inclusive. And when black athletes started to dominate the game, that same system quietly began to shut the door. They call it America's pastime. But it didn't start that way for everyone. Major League Baseball was segregated for more than 60 years, not because black players weren't good enough, but because the rules said they didn't belong. That's how the Negro Leagues were born. Not as a side project, but as a response to being shut out. They built their own teams, they filled stadiums, they were stars, but the MLB looked the other way, like it wasn't even happening. It wasn't until 1947 that Jackie Robinson finally broke the color barrier, and even then, he wasn't welcomed. He was tested, used as a symbol, paraded for progress, while the system stayed the same. Integration didn't mean equality, it meant control. One black player in a white league didn't change baseball. It just gave them someone to point to, while everything else stayed the same. By the 1970s and 80s, black players weren't just part of baseball, they were defining it. Reggie Jackson, Ricky Henderson, Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds. They were the faces of the game, the stars kids copied in their backyards, the names on the jerseys you saw in the stands. And for a while, it felt like the sport had finally turned a corner, but it didn't last. Since the late 90s, the number of black players in Major League Baseball has collapsed. Year after year, the percentage got smaller and smaller. Today, it's the lowest it's been in over 60 years. It's not because the talent disappeared, it's because the path to the majors got harder to reach. Somewhere along the way, the game stopped being something you could just play, and it started becoming something you had to buy your way into. And that price? It isn't small. Today, getting noticed in baseball isn't about who's the best kid on the block. It's about who can afford to be seen. Travel teams, private coaches, showcase tournaments halfway across the country. None of that is free, and all of it is now part of the game. A season of travel ball can run five, even $10,000. That's before gear, training, and hotel rooms. And if you can't afford it, you don't get seen, you don't get scouted, you don't get a shot. Major League Baseball knows this. That's why they've built free academies all across Latin America, while inner city fields here in the US are left to rot. The message is clear. If you can't buy your way in, the door stays shut. Even if you beat the odds and make it to the big leagues, the battle isn't over, because in baseball, star power isn't just about stats, it's about who the league chooses to put in the spotlight. Think about it. When's the last time you saw a black MLB player as the face of a national ad campaign? Or front and center in the league's own promos? During the 80s and 90s, players like Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds, and Frank Thomas were everywhere. Magazine covers, TV spots, even video games. Kids didn't just watch them play, they became them. Today's top black stars, Mookie Betts, Tim Anderson, Marcus Semien, rarely get the same push. Take MLB The Show, the league's own video game. The covers have featured black stars, Ryan Howard, Andrew McCutchen, Ken Griffey Jr., Aaron Judge, Jazz Chisholm Jr., but the push hasn't been consistent, and it took until 2023 for the game to introduce a full Negro League story mode, Real Progress, arriving decades late, because this isn't about one cover, it's about who the league chooses to keep front and center, and marketing matters, because the more fans see you, the more kids want to be you. When you fade a group out of the spotlight, it doesn't just shrink their influence today, it changes who even dreams of playing tomorrow. While opportunities here are shrinking, the MLB is busy building them somewhere else. Across Latin America, the league has created a massive scouting and development network. Baseball academies in the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Colombia. These aren't charity projects, they're pipelines. Kids as young as 13 are signed to train in MLB affiliated academies, fed, housed, coached, and groomed for the majors, all at no cost to their families. Scouts flood these countries year round, tryout camps are everywhere, and signing bonuses even at 16 can change a family's life. Now compare that to the US, where inner city fields are closing, high school programs are underfunded, and kids who can't afford the travel circuit get left behind. It's not just geography, it's economics. International prospects can be signed younger, developed cheaper, and under MLB's rules, controlled longer once they arrive in the league. That's not just a way to find talent, it's a way to control it. And the more the league invests overseas, the more the pipeline here at home dries up. For black athletes in America, it's not a slow fade, it's a door quietly closing. The kids who used to dream of playing in the World Series are dreaming about the Super Bowl or the NBA draft, and it's not hard to see why. Football and basketball are everywhere, on TV every night, filling up social media feeds with highlight clips going viral before the game's even over. Scouts show up early, scholarships are clear, and the road to the pros, it's shorter and cheaper. Baseball asks you to buy the gear, pay for the travel, and hope you get noticed years later. Kyler Murray was drafted by the Oakland A's and still chose the NFL. Jerry and Ely was a top baseball prospect, but followed the money and visibility of football. For a lot of kids, it's a bad bet, and when they scroll through TikTok or Instagram, they don't see baseball players going viral, they see slam dunks, touchdown dances, moments that make you a star overnight. So the best athletes in some neighborhoods never even touch a bat. They've already been recruited by sports that make the path look possible and profitable, and with every lost athlete, another seat in the ballpark stays empty. The people who run baseball don't look like the people leaving it. Every single MLB team is owned by a white majority group, and nearly every decision, from who gets signed to who gets marketed, runs through that lens. It's not just about race, it's about perspective. When the boardroom doesn't understand the communities it's trying to reach, it's easy to overlook the athletes coming from them. And when it comes time to spend money, that's where the gap shows. International scouting budgets keep climbing. Multi-million-dollar deals are made to find the next star from Japan, Cuba, or the Dominican Republic. Meanwhile, the baseball programs in U.S. cities, the ones built to grow talent here at home, are holding car washes just to buy uniforms. Kids are sharing gloves, practicing on fields with weeds in the infield, while overseas, state-of-the-art academies are turning out the next big signing. That's the trade-off. Pour millions into importing talent, while the pipeline in your own backyard quietly crumbles. Baseball's problem isn't just who it markets, it's how it markets and the culture it chooses to project. In football and basketball, swagger is part of the game. You dunk on someone, you celebrate in their face, the crowd loves it, the cameras love it, and the league turns it into a highlight. In baseball, you flip a bat, you talk a little trash, and suddenly you're disrespecting the game. It's a sport still built on unwritten rules written by people who never wanted the game to change. And that doesn't just push away players, it pushes away fans, especially younger fans who grew up on sports where emotion and personality aren't just allowed, they're celebrated. When the game tells its most dynamic players to tone it down, it tells the next generation that baseball isn't a stage for them at all. The real danger isn't just who's on the field today, it's who will and won't be there tomorrow. In the 1980s, youth baseball in America was built on community fields, city-funded leagues, and open access for anyone who wanted to play. Now, the grassroots system is almost gone, replaced by private academies, select teams, and year-round elite programs that cost thousands just to join. And here's the part no one talks about. Those costs aren't just covering uniforms and equipment, they're feeding an entire industry of tournament directors, private facilities, and showcase events that make more money the fewer kids can actually afford to be there. The result? A sport that once pulled talent from every corner of America is now pulling it from the same narrow zip codes over and over again. Baseball isn't just losing black players, it's losing the connection to the communities that built it. When a sport disappears from playgrounds, it disappears from dinner tables, from family traditions, from the stories parents pass to their kids. In the 1970s and 80s, black communities produced Hall of Famers, MVPs, and All-Stars who became household names not just for their stats but for what they represented. Now, the next generation is growing up without those heroes in their hometown teams, and without heroes, there's nothing to pull them into the stands or keep them glued to the game on TV. If the numbers keep trending the way they are, by the time today's little leaguers grow up, baseball could have fewer black players than at any point since the color barrier was broken. And it won't just be a loss for black communities, it'll be a loss for the game itself, because diversity isn't just a talking point. It's the lifeblood of any sport that wants to survive. It's what brings new styles, new energy, new generations of fans who see themselves in the players on the field. Baseball has a choice to make. It can keep drifting toward becoming a niche sport in its own country, or it can fight to rebuild the pipeline, restore access, and make sure the game belongs to everyone again. Right now, baseball is standing on a line. On one side, a slow fade into the background, becoming the sport your parents talk about but your friends don't watch. On the other, a chance to reinvent itself and prove that America's pastime can still belong to all of America. We've seen what happens when a sport waits too long to change. Boxing was once everywhere, from front page headlines to the center of American pop culture. Now, It's a niche attraction, split into fragments, watched mostly by diehards. That same slide can happen here, and once a generation grows up without a real connection to the game, it's almost impossible to get them back. The next few years will decide whether baseball stays part of the culture or becomes a relic of it. Change doesn't always happen with one big moment. Sometimes it's 100 small ones stacked together until you realize the game you grew up with isn't the same game anymore. Baseball's been here before, fighting for its place in the culture, proving it could adapt and finding new life when people thought it was finished. It can do that again, but it won't happen by accident. The next chapter of this sport will be written by the people who care enough to shape it. So don't just watch from the stands. Be part of the conversation, challenge the way the game is run, keep its history alive, and fight for the future it should have. Because if you don't, someone else will decide what that future looks like.